All right, we're ready to go. Part 7 of our empty offensive series, talking about the positions. And so, basically, in parts 1 through 6, we were able to talk about the specific plays. First, the alignments, and now the plays that we were running. And within reason, we've shown you all the plays we run. So we might have come up with something here and there that was different, but those plays made up the vast majority of what we ran. So now we spend part 7, 8, 9, 10 really talking about doing it. And I'll be honest, I think some of this is some of the part people need to hear the most. I think it's easy to get on the board and talk ball and talk about if they do this, we'll do this, and all the plays look good. But it's really about implementing your plays that makes your offense go. So if you're watching this and you're enjoying just learning ball, but you're not going to run this exact stuff we run. You're just trying to pick up a thing or two. You really pay attention to how we structure these next 4 parts, because this can apply to your offense even if you're not doing the exact stuff we're doing. I think if we ran the I, if we ran the wishbone, if we ran the wing tee, or whatever we ran, we would have organized our positions, our practice, our game planning, and our scouting, self-scouting, and opponent scouting, like we're about to teach you how I did it. So I hope this is helpful for you. And, if you have questions, please ask. So this one will be, for lack of a better word, the most boring of the next 4 and the last 4 of these, because we just got to say, okay, now we told you about all those plays. Now, what did each position do? And some of this is going to be repetitive. Some of this is going to be something you've already seen or you've heard before, because we talked about it in this one particular play for a minute. Well, now we're just going to talk about all the quarterback stuff. We're just going to talk about all the running back stuff, whatever. And so when we get done with that, then we're going to talk about how we practiced it. That'll be next time. And then we're going to talk about how we planned for our opponents, and then how we scouted ourselves. So really, first up, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks. And I don't have a lot of video on this one. I don't have, it's really just some rules, how we organized, and I'll answer any live questions we got. And if anybody's watching us back on the playback, they can message us and we'll answer their questions. But I want you to go, everybody will have access to all this. It's going to be a lot of words, so I'm not going to sit here and read to you. I want to talk about how we organize these positions. So as you're listening to this, especially if it's the first time you're listening to this, don't try to write down or memorize all these words up. Think about, how do I organize what I want my quarterbacks to do? So let's talk about quarterbacks. For every position, we're going to say, we kind of had some golden rules, some kind of, hey, things they need to hear over and over again. So if we get a new position coach, you're like, I don't know much about it. Okay, well, just say this over and over. So, when I used to coach DBs when I first started out, we just told them, race out of their back pedal, race out of your back pedal, race out of your back pedal. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about most anything else, but I could say that, and we just get like a mantra. And so, you try to take 5 or 6 things at each position and say, these are kind of our golden rules. These things we got to talk about all the time. We got to have great execution. We got to protect the football. We got to take pride in your fakes. You got to understand the situation. And you got to know times are tough. So quarterback's such an intangible position that it's a little different than some of the other ones where they may have tangible golden rules. Some of these are intangible. For the offense to work for us, the quarterback had to really have great execution. I mean, you've seen a lot of film if you made it to here. We had to have the quarterback understanding when to snap the ball. We had to have good exchanges. We had to know when to send the motion, when not to send the motion. All that stuff with motion and shifts and all that looks great when we're talking, on a Zoom like this. It's no good if the kids can't execute. It's no good if you're going to jump off sides, or if your quarterback forgets to send them in motion, or if the quarterback forgets to shift, or whatever it is. So really, there was no excuse for that. We felt like if our quarterback made a mistake on that, they were going to know that was an issue. Got to protect the football. We can't turn the ball over, fumbles, interceptions, whatever. Carry out great fakes. I mean, the whole point of the offense is to make them cover the whole field. Understanding the situation meant that, as you noticed, we have a ton of plays that are packaged kind of plays, and the quarterback had options. But he had to know if it's 3rd and 1, if it's 3rd and 11. There's sometimes where one of those decisions is a little better based on the situation. And then I thought the quarterbacks had to be tough. if we want to talk about what makes a quarterback, I never cared if the quarterback was tall or short or could run it or could throw it. I always tried to have one that was tough. I thought if they were mentally and physically tough, you had a chance. In high school ball, some of that other stuff factors the higher up you go. Now you get on to accountability. But first, we're going to look about what's our kind of mantra for a position. Now, what's our accountability? Let me give you the Reader's Digest edition of accountability. I think this is important for any. Most coaches are going to say they're going to hold everybody accountable for everything. That's great. You can do it. That's great. It's usually not possible. And what ends up happening is if you have 100 things you wanted the quarterback to be held accountable for, he holds himself 1% accountable to each one of them. And what ends up happening is you don't want him to throw interceptions. You don't want him to have a bad fate. And you may say on the surface, throwing an interception is worse than not carrying out a fake. The truth is, to some degree, the fake's worse because they made a choice on the fake. Nobody ever thrown an interception on purpose. Doesn't mean that's not a cardinal sin to throw one, but it's really important when you talk about accountability that the kids know what are the 3 or 4 things that I got to do. And for the quarterback, this goes way beyond these 4 things. Think about something like, a run pass read. I hope that if you've been watching this, in every run pass option and every run option, every time we talked about power read or zone read or throwing a screen or whatever, there's something in that, either me saying it or it being on this film, a slide somewhere that says, if you're not sure, do this. Man, I was a big fan of that. You make sure that kid's confident. Now, look, this is what I'm going to get held accountable for. So, for us on a play like buck sweep, where we're going to throw the pop pass, it's like, look, if you're not sure, run the buck sweep. So if we throw an interception or throw in the pop when it just wasn't there, that's your go-to line to the quarterback. What's your deal on buck sweep? You hand off unless. They get used to that. You got a chance. Give kids something they can be accountable for. For us, we pick these things, and I'd review this with the offensive staff annually, and then we had them for defense and special teams too. So, but bad fakes, we're charting this. So instead of grading film, we make some notes, watch the whole film, grade the film, basically figure out these things. If we missed the read, meaning we should have gave it and we pulled it or vice versa, and it was pretty blatant. If we didn't send somebody a motion shift or didn't time up the motion or whatever, if we turned the ball over, it was quarterback's fault. And if we had a bad fake, then we were running. So if he had 11 of those, we're doing 11 something on Monday. If he had 1 of them, we do 1 of them. There was some kind of accountability. Listen, I don't even care if they do 1 push-up for everyone. Just make sure they know that there was some accountability there. So then you take your quarterback. You come up with this kind of golden rules. You come up with this, how we're going to hold them accountable. Then you're getting into the scheme. So, see, I would do this if I was running wishbone. But now you get into what do we ask the kid to do? And you need a distinct list like this. And honestly, if I had a little more time to prepare for this, I would have made a big list and a small list. Because this is the big list. But half of this stuff on here we don't hardly ever do, but once or twice a year. There's a small list. And so the quarterback in any individual period, in any group period, is going to be working one of these things. So you say, what reads does the quarterback have to do in your offense? Well, he's got to run pass read, hand off or throw the bubble, throw the pop, whatever. He's got the run read, like power read. Those are stretch reads. He's got the inside zone read. You got the run pass options pre-snap, which means he's deciding, do I throw this ball or do I run it? And he's deciding pre-snap. That's on Roger Lewin choice. What kind of handoffs do they work? Sweep and stretch. They got reads off of those, but those are the handoffs. So if we told the coach, go down there and work handoffs, I'm picking these things and telling them what to do. or they're taking this list and doing it themselves. But there's a clear thing. We're not just down there working whatever. We have a list of, we know what are our handoffs. What kind of runs does the quarterback do? He runs the ball in power, runs the ball inside on the when he keeps it on the jar and jolt play, the inside run, stretch read. So he runs the ball on counter, runs the ball on ISO, and he runs the ball on quarterback buck. So those are the runs quarterback would work, whether with the lineman or by themselves, an individual with some kind of, bag or coach or whatever. So if we told the quarterback go work his drops, there's his drops. And I don't, this session should be more about you organizing your thoughts and seeing how I organize mine, or if you want to steal it, have at it. But, it's less about the video of me teaching you a play. So this will be really helpful and really interesting to some people and maybe really boring to others. But you need to organize your thoughts, and you need a list of what drops you're doing. You sprint, you boot, you deep drop, quick drop. We called it flash when we just flash faked, like we're going to fake the buck sweep and throw. That was a drop for us. Quick game, catch and throw, deep drop, boot, sprint out. That was it. So we were doing those. We're picking one of those and working it at a time, an individual. If we worked in individual, we'd probably work something different in group. Talk about practice next time. What progressions did the quarterback need to know? And there they are. And then what individual throws did they make? So if we went to like a pat and go period, let me just take that list and start checking them off. All right, we did fast screens, hitches, fades, and 10 outs today. So we pick something else tomorrow. And then I put in parentheses what drop the quarterback should have or what play it is, so we can match the drop. So if we're just doing warm-ups, we may tell them, all right, every play's choice. Throwing the fade. So he takes that drop and he's just doing that to his warm-up. Try to make everything as football-centric as possible. And the last thing I'll tell you about the quarterback, and really everybody that has these lists, every position we're going to go over tonight, our quarterback should have gotten this list. And when you first saw this flash up on the screen, you may have thought, damn, what a lot of stuff. But the quarterback should be able to look down there and roll through every one of them things and know exactly what to do. If they don't, then we haven't done a very good job. So that is how we were structured. Now, then, for sake of, this is the part I'm not going to read to you, but I'm going to show you. Now you start getting into what is all that. And I'll answer anybody's questions about it, but we'll be here till 3 a.m. talking about everybody's techniques. But so basically, if you look at this last slide, there should be a paragraph in the playbook or more about how to do each one of these things. And so I cut some of this stuff and put it in a presentation so you can see it. So how do you run Jerry and Jello Brown Bull? There it is. That's your base run read. Where's your stretch reads? There they are. That's how you run them. How do you decide the pre-snap RPOs? There it is. And some of this is all stuff that you may have seen earlier in the series because we pulled it out and showed you when we talked about that play. But if you're just coaching quarterback, all you need is this, and you spend your whole life learning this. So you're coaching the quarterbacks for Coach Parker. You're going, this is what you got. We're going to work Viper. That's the drop. That's the progression. There's the pass pro. We're going to work it. Does anybody have a question about quarterback and quarterback play? I would love to talk about anything more in depth that you want to talk about in offense, but I don't want to talk about every one of these things because this thing will be 75 hours long. Good to see you made it, Coach Page.
Good to be here.
Coach Page made the podcast yesterday. Those of you that noticed his fame. Won't be out till this Tuesday. You have to catch him. No questions about quarterback and quarterback play. This is really about organization of those positions. And I would love to answer any of your specific questions if you want to know about techniques we used or how we did it. I got no problem talking about that stuff. I just don't want to talk about anyone that somebody doesn't have a question about because it can get extensive. So if you're listening to this right now, later, and it's not live, you got a question, reach out and let me know and I'll answer it. But this is how I organize our thoughts at each position. Basically, you would take those last 5 or 6 slides, expand a little bit into more detail, and there's your quarterback manual, say, of what you'd expect they're going to run. Then you move on to running backs. Same thing. What are our golden rules? This is going to be true in the wishbone, the wing tee, spread, doesn't matter. keep the ball high and tight. So you come to me, you're coaching the running backs, and you say, Coach, I never coached running backs in my life. I've been a defensive coach or whatever it is. And I say, all right, well, I'm going to hand you this manual. It's going to help you out. Whenever you don't know what to say this. Ball security, keep the ball high and tight. Take pride in your fakes. Run till you hit, stay with the blocks to the whistle. Now, if you block somebody, run your feet to the whistle. Make one cut and live with it. Bang, get off every play. Those are things you just memorize. Even if you don't know what the hell it means, just say it over and over again. You kind of fake it till you make it. What things got running backs in trouble for us? Fumbling the ball, obviously. Carrying out a bad fake, not finishing block, and false step. Say what's a false step? What we're talking about, because we got so much wing play, we're in tight. They got to have great get off, kind of reaching the outside backer or blocking down on the end or whatever. They don't really have time to hop and jump and check the feet. No, they got to really have a great get off. So we try to put a premium on that. And doesn't mean we always got it, but we count those, and that's what we were doing. So I didn't care if we won 62-0. We try to punish them for these things. And if we lost and they didn't do these things, and that was okay too. We didn't do much about it. So try to be consistent with the accountability. We ask our running backs to do a lot. And so this is kind of their list. It's not the quarterback list. You can see the difference in the quarterback list versus everybody else. But the difference for the backs is they got to play receiver. They got to run the ball. And they got to kind of block like a tight end. I mean, it's not the easiest position in the world to play for us. I'd be lying if I told you it was. But you'd be surprised how many kids can do it in high school. I think if I somehow miraculously became the head college coach somewhere, I don't know that I'd run this exact stuff with the exact look, because I don't know that in college it's as easy to find these guys. But in high school level, your good ball players can do all these things at the level you need to be proficient. So, basically they only had 4 types of runs. So if we went over there and weren't running, we were working these 4 runs. And so what do we ask our running backs to do? They're going to run jet, buck, and stretch. For us, stretch is power read and counter read and all that stuff. So jet, they read it. Buck, they bang. Stretch, they always bounce. So it's really even the same run. Just on jet, get to read it. You got to run how to bang on buck. You got to run how to bounce on stretch. And then in jet, you get to read which one you want to do. Then they got to run inside zone. And that's really it. That's really it. When you've been practicing for May until, November, you can get decent at 4 things. You guys have seen a lot of these blocks individually because they've been in other slides, but we got down blocks where we used on those plays, wrap, back. This is the most common block in offense for a running back, which is where we block the outside back, essentially wherever it is. And there's a different looks you can do it from. But they usually account for the outside backer in probably 40 to 50% of the plays. So we do ISO block where we lead up on the backer, and then we put them out at receiver and block fast screens. So that's all the blocks they would work in individual. So if the running backs were in their individual period, or if they're in a group period with the receivers, they're doing one of these things. These are the routes we ask the running backs to do. So every play we've already shown you in this series, these were the routes. They're running an arrow. They got the choice route. They're going to run a fast screen, hitch, inside go, slow screen, swing or arrows. Swing and arrow, kind of similar. But a swing on that case, we're going to talk about, they come across the field, fake, buck, or jet, and then run the swing off of that. That's what that's talking about. And then a wheel. So that's the routes we got. So, if you're a back, you got to run the ball, you got to carry out fakes, you got to block, and then you got to run routes. So, and the best guys in the offense can do all 4 of them. So that's kind of the hardest, most versatile position to play, but it's not that many things. Again, if you got several months to work it, you can get decent at these routes. Anybody got a question about the running backs or anything I can explain further about what we did with running back play?
Coach, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How often did you use your back in pass protection?
All but never. And that's just because we bought into that empty protection and we worked it. And if they brought the guy hot, we just threw it. And I'm not going to say that there aren't a player or two out there that maybe we wish we had back, but for the most part, that wasn't an issue. Now, if you commit to not using the back in pass pro, you better throw some screens. They'll be decent at them. And for us, we're being empty so often that we just didn't get the crazy empty defense. You know, you would think we would, but we just really didn't. We got the really vanilla defense, 3-man pressure, 4 most usually. And then if we got the bring it stuff, we worked it. So in my opinion, and it is definitely an opinion because people will tell you the exact opposite, and I'm sure they're right for them. So I don't want to sound like my way's better. But in my opinion, I would have rather gotten 100 reps of 5-0 protection, what we called it, where it was like 5 linemen, they got it. And everybody said, I'd rather do that 100 times than do 20 with a back, 20 without a back, 20 where this guy's hot and the other 20 is not hot, and then 20 of this. And so you got 5 different things you got to practice. I wanted to practice 100 things the exact same way and then change the defensive look 100 different times, if that made sense, Coach. And that's just my belief. And it does, and every now and then you're going to eat it. But I'll tell you, I get off on a tangent because that's a great question, by the way. I get off on a tangent and go off on a defensive rant for people. One of the best questions I get asked, because we scored a lot of points doing it. I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm saying it's just a fact. You look it up. We scored a lot of points. And people ask me, well, what gives y'all the most trouble? And you know the defense that gives us the most trouble is the one that just plays regular defense. And they're just good. They're just better than us. They just line up and play ball, you know. But the people that we get were the ones who were terrified of something that could happen one time. And I hope I'm making a point here that y'all are understanding. But as defensive coaches, notoriously will change the whole defense for something that might happen one time. And a lot of times that one time for some teams is 4 verticals, or for us it's been 5. But they're so worried about that. And the truth is, they would have been better off to have lost that one play, given them 7 points, and basically shut them out the rest of the game. Instead, they change all this stuff. They don't get enough practice with it, and they give up 30 points, 35 points, and they lose the game. And if they would have just played ball, they probably give up 21 points or 17 points. Does that make sense, Coach? And so I took the same approach in pass pro. Like, we're going to get burned occasionally. If you don't keep that back in, you are going to get burned occasionally. But if we practice it so often that it's just used to us, that when they bring this guy, we're throwing. And we only got these few plays, really. I was going to eat that 1 or 2. If we got sacked on 3rd down and really should have kicked the back in, then I was going to eat it. We are going to punt. But we're going to play the next time the same. We weren't going to abandon our 99 other good reps, if that makes sense. And that's my opinion, my rant for the day. But that's not indoctrination on people that keep the back in. It's just that we based out of empty, so we try to stay true to that. If my opinion, Coach, if you keep the back in, I'd keep him in all the time. Like except on slow screens or some little, you'd have one little thing where you did it, you flared him out, it was kind of predetermined, he had a little angle route or something. But I would make my pass pro as consistent as possible. Make it as consistent as possible so you can get as many reps as possible in practice of you doing the same thing.
Thank you, Coach.
Great question, by the way. The other thing is, we had to teach the guy how to do it, and some bitches never blocked anybody anyway. I mean, let's just be honest. They ain't never blocked anybody. So it was a really expensive technique. We did it years ago. It was a really expensive technique. It took a ton of reps getting to make one decent block all year. At receiver, probably a little easier position, but kind of make or break the offense a little bit, to be honest. Let me tell you about receivers in this 5 wide stuff. If you're receivers, and so you were clear on what I mean by receivers, I mean the X, Y, and Z. I mean not the inside guys that may be out at receiver, but they also move in the backfield and play running back and all that. I mean the outside guys. When people say, well, what defense gave you the hardest time? Well, it's the ones that play straight up. But I'll tell you what other ones gave us a hard time were the ones that we just could not win a matchup with. We just couldn't. Either the team was just damn good or we were really bad at receiver, because sometimes we were. So if we were bad at receiver, we had those decent running backs that could move around, and that was where we put our better guys, but we didn't have the receivers to go with us. And we're just getting zero coverage and everybody rallying to those guys. The thing that made the best teams we had and the most points we scored against good competition was when all 5 guys had a legitimate chance to make something happen with the ball. They don't have to all 5 be equals. But if you feel like you can't get but 3 out of the 5 guys the ball, that's a problem. These receivers got to really take pride in getting better. And I think a decent athlete that really understands their job can be a pretty good receiver in this offense. They don't have to be guys that are studs going to Georgia or something to play football. They can be decent athletes, but they do have to take some pride in themselves. They got to be hard workers, and they got to be able to make something happen. So, we need yards after the catch, because a lot of our throws are just based on leverage. If they're playing way off and we throw you a hit, we need that to be 8 or 9 yards, not 5. Little things like that. You need to work on the little things about stemming defenders, sticking routes. Because like I was just answering the question with Coach had, we're only going to do a few things. We're going to do it our one way, so we really got to be good at it. So we got to learn how to stem defenders. You got to learn how to stick routes. Catch everything that touches you. Run off man coverage. Like, do not let them run man coverage on us, because if you run off, and what I mean by run off is on the running play. You run that guy off like it's a fade, let him turn and run you, and you got the edge. I mean, you got to make it where it's hard for people to play man coverage on you because you run the edge so much. What's the wide receivers accountable for? What are the things we're getting onto them for? Dropping the football, obviously, we got to catch things that get near us. Bad stance to start. I think that's all. Something about that just reeks bad football, and we did it occasionally too. I'm saying you won't find some film of us, but get your receivers in a good stance, like they want to be out there, and a great get off, like they, if they're not running off versus man, we're gonna get on them. And if they're bad positioning on their blocks, or on their routes, are just not where they're supposed to be, then we're gonna get on them. This is kind of the alignment rules as a whole. I mean, we talked about this way back, but if you were out by yourself and the ball's on this hash, you could be between the numbers in the hash. If you're out by yourself and the ball's in the middle here, if you're by yourself and ball's on this hash, you could widen outside the numbers. Traditionally, we spread it out more like this with multiple receivers, where guys by himself over here, and we spread out even here. I mean, this is what we're normally going to do. But, we give them some generic alignment rules there so we can spread the field. You guys have already seen all this in other slides from earlier sessions, but receivers got to stalk. They got to be able to block. All their blocking similar. You can teach them crack too. You got to be able to block a bunt. You see here. Do a lot of bunts. Receivers get in there and make that happen. And then the main thing the receivers want to do is catch football. You know that. So you got to teach them to block first, and these are the things that we used. The routes they had, and they had more than this. There's 2 or 3 of these slides, but there's a description, plays they would use it on, and then who did it. So there are different ways to do it. So there's a few of these that I'll gladly go over any of them individually if somebody wants to, but you guys can read. You're all pretty intelligent. Does anybody have a question about receivers and receiver play? Right now, before I get into the O-line, I'm probably going to tell you the tight ends, because we purposely didn't have just because of coach. If I had enough coaches, I'd have had a tight end coach, matter to me. But we used the tight ends would go with the line part of the time, they go with the receivers part of the time, and that's when they would work their stuff. But so just because I don't have a tight end category doesn't mean we didn't love the tight ends. If we had tight ends, I love tight ends. Some years we played with 1, some years with 2, some years not much with any. So just depended on what we had. So, but tight ends would have had to obviously find time to get in their own list of routes that they would run with the receivers and with the quarterbacks. And then they would still spend most of their time with the offensive line. I think a tight end's got to be able to block somebody first. Unless we get Gronkowski or somebody like that, we will focus on that. The O-line's probably the most, talked about group. And I guess O-line and quarterbacks probably. But O-line's one of the things that I don't want to offend anybody, but I probably will, because anything you say offends somebody on the line, because there's so many different ways to do it. There's so many good ways to do it. So it's hard to pick out 3 or 4 things with the line and say these are the things we thought you had to do. But after a long period of time doing this, these were kind of the things we talked about with our coaches, and we look at every year and say these are the things we got to look at. So with the O-line, it was just run your feet the whole play. Run your feet the entire play. Stay up. I did not like people on the ground. Now, if we're under center, run the wing T, yeah, we dived at people, crab, all that old school stuff. In the gun, it gets in the way. Diving on the ground is one of the dumbest things you can do, because you clog the hole. Like, run your feet to the whistle. Run your feet to the whistle every play. Just keep moving somewhere, and it can create a lane that wasn't there before. Keep your head back in pass pro. And what I mean by this is they're common mistakes. These are things that we thought these were the things that kids need to hear. So if we pass pro, if you look at the sacks in a high school game, I don't want to give a number because I don't know it, but I'm going to guess 3/4, 75% of the time, the kid is punching with his head forward, lunging, and that's why he gets whipped. They got to have their head back on the pass pro, something that simple. And there's a billion more technical ways to say it than that, and there's a billion technical things you do after that. I wanted real simple rules. I wanted the kid to know if they ran their feet to the whistle, yes or no. So if their feet stayed hot the whole play, good. If it was a pass play, was my head back, yes or no, when I watched it? Good play, regardless of what happened other than that. Great get off every play, meaning pushing off the correct foot, great first step, those kind of things. Take care of the first level first. You never leave a first level defender for a second level defender if we can't handle it. So that'd be in pass pro, being same as an end zone and stuff like that. And once you engage a defender, he's yours. There's no, especially in the down block where you don't get the down block and then him slide off of it and you go on to the next guy. That's your guy. You got to find a way to block him until they blow that whistle. What did O-linemen get in trouble for? And it kind of mirrors the rules, not moving their feet, feet staying stagnant, bad get-offs, bad head placement, and then obviously missing assignment, like they blocked the wrong guy. Then, we're going on for that. So we try to give them some real clear things, because you can get really, really, my opinion, you can get really into the weeds on O-line. The coaches talk to these O-linemen like they're O-line coaches, and the kids' heads about to explode. They got a million things they're trying to memorize. Make it something simple for them, and everything you do really should come back to your O-line. So for us, these were our blocking schemes. So if I wanted to put in a new play, or if Bo wanted to put in a new play, or whoever, they said, "Hey, coach, I watched this, I watched this the other day, or I saw this team, or blah, 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 blah." And we'll say, okay, well, what can we already do that's like that? We can run that if we can block it the same as power read, if we can block it the same as buck, if we can block it the same as, counter, or whatever it is. If we had to come up with a new blocking scheme, I wasn't really all about it. It doesn't mean it's not a good play. It just means these linemen have the hardest job. We're going to not expand on their list. We're going to expand on other people's lists. Somebody asked me about line splits earlier, in one of the earlier sessions, and the base plans be 3 feet, and we would love to cheat out and back based on covered and uncovered, but we saw so much odd that we just don't even harp on it as much anymore. But that would have been the base plan. And these are all just jet blocking schemes. I'm not going to read through them. I'll gladly talk about technique in a minute when we get to pass stuff. But, this is what we did for the blocking schemes. Y'all seen most of these because they were in the previous slides. There's counter. Base blocking, so we do on Roger and Louie, and there's inside zone. Now, with inside zone and with pass pro, you can get a little complicated. So it's probably a little more to it than what I'm leading on here in these slides. But, you know, the key on inside zone is to get a push and to combo up, take care of the first level first, and then really rip away from this read, you know, to get to the next guy. So if we can get a push there, combo up, turn, we got something. Here we got 2 combos on the 2s. Here we got a combo on the nose and a combo out here. So how will we go about doing that? Great get-offs, you know, being physical, run your feet to the whistle. Pass pro, you know, a lot of this stuff's who's got who. You're going to get into technique stuff. You can ask me and I'll tell you what we did. And with some stuff, if you want to get real technical, I have to defer to some other people. But we want to make sure we were real consistent with who had who, you know. Sprint out, screen game, same thing. And there's even a few more of these things. If you go to the documents for this session on the site, there's even more kind of descriptions of some of the techniques that we used that you can kind of put together in some kind of book if you wanted to. Has anybody have any question about O-line stuff? You got any questions, Bo?
No.
Dang, I look like I done fought a battle in here. Still recording, so people hear this down the road, but I was putting a bed together for my youngest daughter earlier, so I had to run down here. So I apologize for my rough look today. Does anybody have a question about any of the position stuff or anything that we can answer for you now? All right, well, let's see. We got one. Oh, you said likes the organization, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, glad to do it. I do think that before I stop recording, I want to give this little soliloquy on people can hear. You don't have to do it like we did. That worked for us. If I work somewhere else, I might tweak it and you change it every year. Getting organized with your stuff is something you need to do. So you don't have to do it my way, but you need to figure out what's the list of techniques our quarterback needs to do. What's the list of running back? The running back has to do these runs, these passes, these blocks, whatever. And then how are we going to practice them, which is what we're going to talk about next time. So I hope that helps you at least get thinking on that. So you can do it for yourself. Feel free to steal ours if it'll help you. But if not, start doing that for yourself. You know, and thinking about some ways you can get your thoughts organized. You can practice better and smarter. So this is kind of the first part of a 4-part. Let's get organized part of this. But I thought you had to see that first. And next time we'll talk about practices and we'll go from